Hello, Scorpio. Welcome to the Plaid Sheep Oracle. Well, your reading, readings have been, sort of mystical or expansive, and yours is sort of practical, I want to say, or very down to earth, kind of. And your reading definitely wanted to be done today. I'm doing it later than I normally do, but it wanted to come out. So here we are. So maybe there's somebody who's going to see this reading for whom it is especially important, even if it's only one of you. But the card that came out is from the Lenormand deck, and it says clouds. Now, in the Lenormand, clouds can denote confusion. That the sun is obscured, that there isn't, that something is unseen, but that's not how they're coming through. This is coming through as a kind of reverie or a dream that you had. The bottom of the deck, first of all, the garden, and then these stars, right? So there's this wish, very specifically for a garden, for a home that has a garden. The visible underside is the scythe, which is usually meant to denote, death, like something being cut off quite abruptly. And with the snake underneath as this thing that's wrapping around you, I think that wherever you're living, quite literally, not metaphorically, has been constrictive in some way. Now, that could be in terms of its size. Perhaps it's a very small space, and maybe you have a family that's growing, or you have an intention to share your space, either with a life partner or with a roommate, and so you need more space. Or it could be restrictive, and that could be in a metaphorical way. That you're living in a space that somehow restricts you. I mean, if we are talking about a garden, you could be living in an apartment, or in a house that doesn't have a garden, or maybe you live in a house that's rented, so that you're limited in what you can do to the property. But you've been thinking, you've been dreaming of something else, of this garden. And then we have judgment, right? And this particular judgment, where somebody is taking, she's taking one last look behind her before she joins these other people in this sunny, beautiful sort of garden space. Now, below her is the Hermit. So it may indeed be that you are joining up with somebody, whether it's a roommate or a romantic partner. Maybe getting married or moving in with somebody. Or maybe you're, wanting to join an intentional community. That's also a possibility. To join what used to be, and is sometimes still called, a commune. Below that is the Ace of Swords. So whatever this is, it's new. It's a new idea. It's something that you have not done before. If you have been living in a house, this is going to be a different sort of house, maybe in a completely different place where you never envisioned yourself before. Or maybe it is a group living situation where you're joining a bunch of people. My sister, when she graduated college, she moved to the West Coast in Northern California, and she lived in a big Victorian house that had a bunch of people living in it. And she really enjoyed that, this sort of vibrant atmosphere of lots of people. So it might be that. Now, the bottom of the deck has the High Priestess. So this has been showing up in some way to you. Maybe you found yourself drawn to, gardening shows or magazines, or you find yourself thinking wistfully of seed catalogs and of, maybe you've been really noticing other people's gardens and how they arrange them, and you've been thinking about what you would do. Maybe, real estate ads have suddenly started showing up. In your feeds, even though you didn't search for property, but suddenly they're there. Perhaps you're meeting people who are talking about their gardens or their property or moving, right? There's some other way, or maybe, if you are someone who does their own divination, or you watch card readings or go to a reader, some of this has been coming up in some way here with the High Priestess. And then there's you. Here you are, Death. And you're looking a little bit, I don't know, I want to say skeptical. This always, right, this sort of looks like you're saying, really? Really? Maybe you've been a really happy city dweller up until now. Maybe you really enjoyed living in an apartment in a city with all, the amenities and the, that it's easy. You can just, walk to the corner store when you're out of something. And so you may be a little bit daunted by this idea of moving to somewhere completely different. But we have the Star here. After the stars in the Lenormand, the Star. There's something here, a wish, a longing, that maybe you've never acknowledged to yourself, or it could be entirely new. We go through different seasons in our lives. I had an aunt who, when her children were fairly young, she and my uncle moved to a very rural place. And they were there for about 2 years. And she found that very difficult. It was not the right time. But then many, many years later, they retired to a similarly, in fact, a slightly more rural place with more property than they'd had. And then it was the right time, and she enjoyed it so much. So you're entering a different season to your life. Something has changed. And then we have this Nine of Pentacles. So perhaps you're feeling sort of complete where you are. that whatever you wanted to accomplish, or perhaps, you know, what you wanted to experience. There's also the sense that this is, right, this is the 9, and like the Hermit is here, the other 9. So that maybe what's happening is that you have met someone. Either you've, you're right, you're in a new romance, or you have decided that you've been living alone for too long. You know, it might be that you've been in a romance for a long time. Another example, I have another friend who's been with her partner for, I think, 12 years now. And they live apart. They have, 2 complete houses, and it works really well for them. And maybe that worked really well for you. But now you want something different. So something has changed that is calling to you around something about you that has been solitary. And it might even be that you are living with someone or even married to someone, but that you've been, that you've still been solitary somewhere in your own mind. That maybe it's because you live in an apartment, or maybe they came and moved in with you. So you had this sense of this being your space, and that you still think of it that way. And to move is to come into our space. So there's all kinds of possibilities, but there's something here about your being single, even if it's only in your own mind, to your being part of some shared life. And with this particular 4 of Cups, there is this dream quality, right? Like the clouds, that you've been dreaming of this in some way, even if it might even be at night, though this 4 of Cups has a daydream kind of card. Dreaming of some different place. And then we have the Gardener. And at the bottom, the House of Flowers. So wherever you're going, or wherever you want to go, but I think you're, I don't know. I mean, right, we all have free will. You could choose not to. But I think you're going to have to put up a lot of resistance. But there's a garden. There are flowers. There is some place where you're going to be growing things. Most of these are flowers, but it could be vegetables. It might be that you're moving to a farm, perhaps. It might even be, if you're not actually moving somewhere, that you're transforming the place where you live. If you already live somewhere where there is land, space for growing things, maybe it's that you're going to set out to turn it into a garden. Right? We have no rain today. The sun coming out. Clarity. It's also possible that you've been feeling, right? That you've been feeling a longing and you didn't know what it was. And that now the sun is coming out. The sun is coming out. My home is my castle. And under my umbrella, a safe space, a haven, a sanctuary. Someplace that really feels, right, yours. Someplace that you feel a part of. I also feel here like perhaps recommending, if you're interested, the work of Sharon Blackie. She's someone who talks a lot about the spirit of place, of connecting to the place where you are, or, you know, of finding the place where you feel you belong. So that wherever this is, it's really, right, it's going to feel like home. It's going to feel like home. I think if by any chance you're already there, you haven't been there very long. And maybe you ended up there by accident, or I don't know. But you're going to make it into your home. But I think that the majority of you that are coming here are not there yet. Because then we have the knight right here with his torch seeking. Judgment repeats. Below that with this call, a bit of a call to action. And then the King of Cups, who is your court card. And again, this, right, there's this sense of home, right? Home is where the heart is. And then actually we have this particular Two of Wands coming out with two torches meeting. So there's something about meeting somebody. The bottom of the deck has the Princess, the Lady of Swords, the Page of Swords. So there may also be some sort of incoming information. This, right, this ad that shows up, somebody telling you that something, you know, there's this house is up for sale, or, you know, have you considered moving to this town? It's really beautiful, or, you know, this is where I live and it's so lovely. I highly recommend it, right? Something. It's not going to be, right, and this is the lady, the page. So this is not going to be something grand, right? It's not like the Knight of Swords who comes charging in with his piece of information. This may come through, right, through these High Priestess subtle channels. And next to her is the Star, repeating here, right, drawing you forward. And then we have the Chariot, this particular Chariot, which, right, is following the Star. And then the Ace of Swords again, with the newness. Queen of Cups, the home, and also the partner to the King of Cups. And it's interesting that his cup has a heart and her cup has a question mark. So two individuals coming together. And then that shows up here again with the Two of Swords, which normally, you know, is about a decision. But this feels very much, right, after that Two of Wands appearing. Right, that you have your sword and somebody else has their sword and you're meeting up. So then this reflecting pool. And I think this is about seeing yourself differently, right? Because she's right? She's this woman, but then her reflection is a swan. So there's something, maybe if you really have thought of yourself as a city person, or maybe you've been living alone for a really long time. And so you think of, right, you really like your space. Maybe you think of someone who's really set in their ways. Maybe you think you're not going to want to share your refrigerator. That you sort of like your own space, or you like living in the city, or you like, renting an apartment so you don't have to worry about any of it, right? You just call the landlord to fix things. And the idea of owning something, of owning a house and property seems really daunting, or just, right, it's just not you in some way, right? You're an urbanite. To see yourself differently. The bottom of the deck is this, right, is renewal. And, again, right, touching, finding the frog prince. So then we have expansion. And we have the castle again. So I'm also inclined to think that wherever this is, it's not a tiny house. I mean, it could be, right? You meet somebody and the two of you decide to get a tiny house together. I don't want to say it can't be that, but it's not seeming that way, because we have the garden, we have this house, right, that's exploding with flowers. We have, my home is my castle. And then we have this castle showing up. So while it might not be enormous, it might not actually be a castle, although it could be. And if you actually are moving into a castle, you must come to the comments and say so. Because I want to know. And it could be, right, to some extent, right, a metaphorical castle, but with this, right, with this sense of expansion. I'm also thinking of Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, which is one of my favorite movies, with Myrna Loy and Cary Grant. And they live in a New York City apartment with their daughter. And, there's all of this kind of, right, they have no space. And so he decides that they should get a house, and they're going to buy a house in Connecticut. But they buy the house, and the people who come to inspect it tell them that it's falling down, they need to tear it down. And so they do, and they build a new house, and it's this whole thing. But what they end up with at the end, after this, process, is really beautiful, and they really feel at home there, right? Like they create a home through the process, because they also meet, right? They meet the local people, the builder and the contractor and the different artisans who come to work on the house, and so they make friends, right, with these people. There's whole new relationships that are formed. And it's this, right, this process of the creation of a home. All right, because then we have this bluebird of happiness, Scorpio. Does that make you itch, Scorpio, the bluebird of happiness? Would you prefer a crow of happiness? Well, you're getting a bluebird. Right? You may have to accept that you're actually a little bit of a bluebird person. Another piece of personal thing that is useful here maybe is that at one point in my life I had to come to terms with the fact that I was a morning person. And that didn't seem glamorous at all, right? Being a night owl seemed much more glamorous. Somebody, who's up till, the wee hours of the morning in the darkness. The places where, that are sort of illicit and secret and occult, right? It's all at night. But it's not what my body enjoys. And I love the morning. So coming around to maybe you've changed. So then we have this 9 of water in the advice. Scorpio. The salmon returning home. Right? Doing whatever she needs to do to get back there. Right? Even below that we have the maze, right? Going possibly through some sort of trickiness. There might be things that have to be navigated. Finding this new place and buying it and packing up all your stuff and moving and doing all of these things. But below that, we have rebirth. You showing up again, this time. Right? You start out kind of skeptical. Really? Really? This is my reading, really? To here, look at you. So beautiful, so excited. And the bottom of the deck has the Guardian. So again, this sense of, right, of being home, of being, right, in a safe space, in a secure space, a space that feels like home. That you arrive there and you just know. You know you're home. You feel really at home with all of the local fairies and spirits and beings. With the genius loci. So, the messenger there. Page of Swords showing up again. And here with this, right, this really gentle, caring moment. Because the geese, right, it's geese too. Geese going home. The geese who know how to find their way home. No matter where they go or how far they go, they come back. Right? They fly south for the winter and then they come back home in the spring. Witch of Earth. This has kind of that Sharon Blackie feeling a little bit of making friends, right? Of coming into relationship with this new space. Walking the land, walking whatever your property consists of in the house. Getting to know the local energies and beings and animals that inhabit the place. And then the 9 of Fire. Another 9. Right, we've actually had 3 9s. Now we've had the 9 of Earth, the 9 of Water, and the 9 of Fire. The only 9 that's not here is the 9 of Swords, because that's a tricky 9. And it's not here. Right, we have this bounteous 9 of Fire. Right, all the things that you will grow in this space, in this garden. Now, I will say here at the end, it is possible that this is all a metaphor, symbolic in some way, that this garden is symbolic, perhaps of a business that you're going to create, perhaps. But I think that for most of you, this is literal. That you are finding your way home. And it may be a completely new home. It's possible that you've been home, but then now it's done. You are the sign of transformation. So this is a transformation into a new part of your life that involves growing something, right? Bringing life into a space. I'm excited for you, Scorpio. I think it's going to feel so good to find your home. So just be open, right? Be open to those messages, to what's arriving, to the little signs, to things that people say that might be related. And if you do go live in a castle, as I say, come back here and tell us. I wish you the very, very best, Scorpio. And I will see you next time. So long.